Turning now to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, a jury convicting her on 5 of 6 counts of sex trafficking charges after 5 days of deliberations. She's accused of grooming girls as young as 11 to have sex or sexual acts with the late Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell could face up to 65 years in prison. Joining us now to discuss is victims' rights attorney Gloria Allred. Gloria, as we take a look at some of the charges on the screen here, and there are, again, 5 of 6, your overall thoughts on how this trial played out?
I think it was a very, very carefully deliberated trial by the jury, because they asked for so many transcripts of both the prosecution witnesses, John, and also the defense witnesses. And they reviewed the testimony of all of the accusers that testified for the prosecution. They reviewed defense witnesses, including the expert Elizabeth Loftus, who essentially testified that memory could be faulty after so many years for the accusers, and indicating that the jury should really doubt the accuser's memory and testimony. That didn't work. And because the prosecution was wise and only had 4 of potentially 160 victims who alleged that they were victims of Jeffrey Epstein, some of them were my clients, and some of them also made allegations against Ms. Maxwell, because they only had 4, and within a certain limited time frame, I think they were successful in persuading the jury to convict Ms. Maxwell.
I know that you represent, as you just stated, there's some of the victims of this. Have you spoken to any after the verdict was read? Do they feel any relief after this?
I have spoken to some, not all 20 accusers that I represent, but I want to say how brave they were and how happy the ones I spoke to were that there was finally some justice in this case. John, as you know, Jeffrey Epstein was in federal custody awaiting criminal trial in New York in federal court, when suddenly he either died or was murdered, depending on your point of view. The New York authorities say it was suicide. But in any event, these witnesses, these victims, never had the opportunity to confront him in a court of law in a trial. And so they were never able to know the whole truth. And they didn't know if they ever would essentially have access to justice. They did, in this verdict, have access, because the trial was conducted against Ms. Maxwell. And she was convicted of 5 of the 6 charges. And I think the most serious one is conspiracy to sex traffic underage girls. And this sends a message, now that she was convicted, to others who would assist, who would enable, who would conspire to sex traffic underage girls to any sexual predator, or to prey on them themselves, that they too may be prosecuted, they too may be convicted, and they may too face potentially 60 to 65 years in prison, depending on the crimes for which they are convicted. So does the benefit justify the risk? I don't think so.
Is sentencing still not set just yet? Gloria, I want to ask you this, because as serious as these charges are, Ghislaine Maxwell is simply the vehicle of a bigger picture here of what could be more abusers, as was pointed out by Virginia Giuffre. And she was one of the ones responding to the verdict, and she actually tweeted this out. I'll read it to you. She says, Virginia says, "My soul yearned for justice for years, and today the jury gave me just that. I will remember this day always, having lived with the horrors of Maxwell's abuse. My heart goes out to many other girls and young women who suffered at her hands and whose lives she destroyed." End quote. She goes on saying this, "I hope that today is not the end, but rather another step in the justice being served. Maxwell did not act alone. Others must be held accountable. I have faith that they will be." End quote there. Who might she be talking about? Will we see other names?
Well, it may be that she's talking about Prince Andrew, because she's suing Prince Andrew in a New York court. Of course, he denies her allegations that he had sex with her when she was underage, when she was 17 years old. So we'll have to see what happens in that case. Interesting that Prince Andrew declined, reportedly, to speak to the federal prosecutors in the Ms. Maxwell trial, despite the fact that they publicly indicated they wished to speak to him, despite the fact that I publicly urged him and sent a letter to his home on behalf of Epstein victims, urging him to speak to the federal prosecutors, despite the fact that he gave an interview on British television, not under oath, but a 1-hour interview in which he spoke about Jeffrey Epstein. Why would he not testify under oath, or at least, if not under oath, speak to law enforcement, the federal prosecutors?
Really quickly, I want to ask you
he
this.
knows.
I'm running out of time. Does it concern you that court documents were sealed in this case?
I think that the judge was very careful. I think there was so much evidence out there. It doesn't concern me if some evidence was sealed. And it may be that the reason that it was sealed is because law enforcement, the prosecutors, intend to use it in a different criminal case. We don't know. They're not saying. We'll have to wait and see. But the legal reckoning happened yesterday, and justice is long overdue and finally arrived for many of the victims.
A date for sentencing has not been set. We will continue to follow that once it does. Gloria Allred taking the time. Gloria, always great to see you. Happy New Year to you.
You too. Happy New Year to everyone.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.